Perfect. Yeah, so we're recording. I'll reach out to her. I'll make sure she gets it. We'll be wrapping up about 5:30. There is a survey to close that I think will take maybe anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes. There's some long answer questions towards the end, and that'll be the last thing that I assign for you. And then as soon as you submit that, we'll send a certificate for the CPE credits earned, and I'll work out the same thing with Taslan. So thanks for making time. I'm thinking Elizabeth is going to come back around, but we'll go ahead and get started, and I will just kind of fill her in as soon as we see her again. So hopefully you got my weird forward from Ellen's invitation, and you have an agenda for today, a couple of articles, and a spreadsheet. So if you've got those, great. We will just jump right into it. So first off, beginning of the agenda, most of this is like reflective. We started kind of thinking together about parent engagement and the situation that everyone finds themselves in. And hopefully as the program has gone along, you continue to reflect on that. To be honest with you, I don't see how you couldn't, given how this year has thrown nothing but curveballs at everyone. I think both families and teachers alike. So as far as the program goes, we want to do a little bit of reflection on that. And then please know that because it was sort of the pandemic version, we did make some changes, but I'm not going to say what those changes were. I may have said it before, but I like some of the things that kind of came out of what we were forced to do. So as we do with any program, I'm asking for your feedback to help towards the improvement of the program. So what do you think went well, and what do you think could be improved? And I will be taking some notes as you go along.
I know that my kids really, really enjoyed it. And for weeks leading up to our visit, they were nonstop talking about going to the museum and getting to do the activities. And then for weeks afterwards, do you remember when, and still to today, do you remember when we did this? And they're relating the activities that they did at the museum to things that we're learning about in class, which is super awesome.
That's excellent. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, same. That's funny because I had one of Megan's kids yesterday tell me, "Hey, I saw you at the museum," and I'm like, "Yep,"
That's
sure
great.
did. And then I had another one of my kids asking me today, "Hey, why didn't we get to do the lollipop thing like we did the first time?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because I completely forgot and had no idea what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they really enjoyed it. I really like how the museum was closed just for them, so they got to interact with a lot of the exhibits. And I like, I don't know, I like just them having that experience. The only thing I noticed, which I thought was kind of unfortunate, is that the students, I think, who would have benefited more from this experience were the ones that didn't go. Like, the ones that don't do a lot of extra stuff at home. So I think that's something like maybe next year where I could really push to those particular families, really push more like, hey, it's free, you should go, and like really set the scene for what it is, just kind of knowing more this year.
Yeah, that's always a struggle. And, in some of the early PLC sessions, we'll come to that conclusion. And I don't like to do that because it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, we don't want to assume. But on the other hand, I'm going to say probably going into it, you knew who would be the families that would be least likely to come. Yeah. And I do agree with you. Those are the ones that we agree would benefit the most from an experience like this. I'd say through the years, we have these wins every now and then where a teacher's like, I couldn't believe that X family decided to come because they never do anything. And it was great to see that. But that's always a struggle. And I think particularly like in a year one of this program, We've had schools do at least 2 years. I think no school has done any less than 2 years in the program. And then some schools are now going on like a fourth year of it. So then, yeah, as they learn more about it, it does kind of affect their approach in terms of recruiting families. What we hope, and I'm always interested in the honest feedback, does that kind of like inform the way you communicate with families about things outside of the museum visit? So kind of the way we're using the museum visit is like, we want you to get practice at communication with families and improving that. It's not the only thing, but it's one of the things. And so because you have the visits, it's one thing you can talk about. And then out of that, hopefully, again, you're maybe discovering some ways of approaching families that might influence the other contact that you have. Any other improvements?
I guess when you work with those new schools, like, and I know, like you said, like your reasoning for not giving as much information so they could approach it as a parent, but just having more information does help because, like I said, I think it would help us sell it more. Like not sell it, but just push it to our families more.
Yeah. So that was one of the changes as a result of the pandemic. And that was very much Ellen and I kind of deciding that this is an anxiety-ridden time. So in other years, yes, I'm saying we purposefully put a bit of anxiety on the teachers because our thinking there is teachers at the school campus have the leverage. It's not to say you don't have stressful lives and experience anxiety, but I believe for most parents, when you come onto a school campus, it's like, this is not my territory, right? Like I'm at your building and, you kind of run things here. And so I think there can be a bit of anxiety from the parent perspective because like, everything and me and my child are here to learn the things that we wanted in our first years to kind of flip that and put teachers in the position where like, well, you don't know what's going on either. It did not feel right to do that in this moment. So we told you a little bit more than we usually do. And as the program went along, I'm now kind of second guessing and questioning where we started and think it's a much better move to provide the information. I think you said it, to improve that communication with the parents. So if they're wondering like, well, what are we doing? You can be more explicit about what's actually happening. And I'm going to come back to this question. I'm interested in how we can continue to connect to what's going on in the classroom. So I was really grateful to hear that students are making some connections with the trip here and things that y'all are doing in class. We'll come back around to that in a second. Anything else on the could have been improved? And Elizabeth, welcome back. We lost you for a second there.
Thanks. I'm actually driving, but I do have some input, and I feel, and I don't know if teachers feel the same about this, but me as a kind of an outsider, I guess you could say, or the liaison that helped put this together,
yeah, I
would have wanted a more defined role, I guess is the best way to put it. As college, how do I fit into the museum nights, for example? I don't know if teachers in a sense felt that same way, or if it's just me because they're not my students. I don't really know them,
Yeah, no, that's great. You were in a really very different situation from anybody we worked with. Because in the past, if we've had counselors, we've had CIS site coordinators, we've had parent and family liaisons be that extra person that's helping to coordinate. And I think I see the same thing. So I think you're right, Elizabeth, kind of defining your role, not just in the coordination, but what actually happens at the events is something that we can work on and improve. I will say it is really different for you because of the way that Aspire works. So I know with, say, the counselors or a CIS site coordinator, they're likely from that campus and know those kids and work with them daily. And I know that was not the same. But we appreciate the connection that you've made and that we're coming along for the ride. So and then by the way, my intent is to continue to work with Pecan Valley what we'll be able to do is include more teachers. So Diana and Megan, I'd love to welcome y'all back in for a round 2 if you're interested, and then we can see about expanding out within the grade level, or just kind of make that decision with your principal, what's going to be best for the school. And Elizabeth, I hope that you continue to stay along in the ride for us, and we can kind of work on what would be most beneficial to the program. And I would also kind of turn the question back to you. How do you see that this program might support some of what Aspire's goals are? In the past, we've had community partners join us for some of the visits. And that can be anything from them bringing an activity that adds to what we're doing. More often, it's them tabling and just providing information for parents. Given the goal of Aspire to engage in college for having families and kids have the ability to see college as an opportunity, I'm just going to wonder aloud, like maybe there's something during those visits that is driven more by Aspire's mission, but it also adds to what's going on for the evening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would actually be great. I know I would personally love to have our general the Jaguar there for support as well. If we could have a table with information, or even an activity, I think that would definitely support our goals. Because at the end of the day, we want to connect students to, and like you said, it's hard to think and talk at the same, think and drive at the same time, but yeah, connecting them to college and then making them aware that it's a possibility for them. It's within their reach.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. And I think, the earlier you start having those experiences and those conversations, I think the better, the more consistency there is. And I think the presence of college and university in the mind of a child and in their life and their circle makes it more attainable. Anything else on the commends or the recommends? Anything else that you'd say went well? Anything else we can improve? This is a nice list here. If we got nothing else, great. I'm going to move on to the next question. So then I'm curious how you spent your time through the visits, and not a right or wrong answer here. We open our doors for all of you to come, bring partners, bring family, enjoy the evening. So how did you spend your time? And I would also say, what recommendations would you have? I think kind of going back to Elizabeth's question, because in the past, we've struggled a little bit with this, not often, but sometimes teachers will wonder, what am I doing on those evenings, right? Like they'll come to the first one, they're like, it was cool. Like the kids loved it. We want to do it again, but I'm not sure what I should be doing during the visits. So if you can tell me a little bit about how you spent your time and any recommendations you would have.
I know that, and I think Diana felt the same way, but the first time we went, we definitely felt, what are we supposed to be doing? It was a little bit awkward, I guess. I felt like I was intruding on my family's enjoying their time, together doing the activity. But then the second time, I felt like more involved with them. I got to participate more with them. It was more, I was more comfortable, and I don't know if it was just because I kind of knew like what to expect the second time around, or just because my relationships with the families were a lot stronger, because we went, December, that's still kind of the beginning of the year, getting to know families and kids. And then this time, it's towards the end of the year, really know them and have connections with them. So, and maybe even the time helped to build the connections to make it more involved the second time we went.
Yeah. I'd say to your point about it being early in the year, and in the regular version of this program, those are really early in the year. So it's not even like towards the end of the semester. If we're kicking this off, as we usually do in earnest, we're doing our first PLC session. We try to do those, like, if we can during in-service time, if we can work in, to that week before school. If not, then we do it during the very first month of school. So then that first visit is usually like September or October. So I'm going to say, I think you may always have that kind of awkwardness for that first visit in regards to the families, but I am feeling more and more that we can play a stronger role in helping you understand what you can do. And even if that's like, no, we're really serious, like enjoy it, and we want to see you enjoying it, just really hitting that home. So I don't know that I emphasize that enough. Like, this is for you to just kind of, be a person with a family or not, and have fun and do that alongside the kids. But we'll dig into that. I think that's fair to kind of think about how different those first visits are for most teachers in this program compared to when you come for the last ones. And then I'll take Elizabeth's point in the chat there. Some icebreaker activities could probably go a long way to help with that relationship building, not only for the program, but then hopefully that has a nice effect as you go back to campus.
So I'm going to preface this by saying, like, this year has probably been like my worst family engagement, or worst like connections, rapport with my family. Maybe not rapport, just like I've dropped the ball, like as far as just like communication, that's the word. Like, my communication has not been what it normally is, I think, just in years prior. And I think that's just, I'm in grad school right now, so I'm just kind of overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I agree with Megan, like that first visit, yeah, like I totally felt out of place and like intruding on their time. But the second visit was so enjoyable, and I think it's because I had my voice, and so I really was not like playing my teacher role. Like, I was totally focused on my kids, like mom time, because they always get neglected because of school. So we had a great time, and like my child cried the whole way home because he didn't want to leave.
Of course.
So yeah, great for y'all, not for me, but it was really fun. And it was nice. I had told a lot of the kids before, because my son is super, super shy. And so I told them, I said, like, look, guys, like, you can tell Charlie hi, because he's first grade too, like them. I was like, but he probably won't talk to you, but you can talk to him. But if he ignores you, just like, don't take it personal, kind of thing. And I was like, but you can talk to Henry. Henry's crazy. He'll talk to whoever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was interesting, because a lot of the kids, like, they came back, like, one was just like, I was going to say hi, but I just felt too shy, so even they felt that way too, I guess.
That's awesome that you took the time, though, to kind of give that little preview, right? And sort of pre-introduction. And, I think that could have gone any number of ways. Maybe you'd have had a more confident kid decide, like, well, hey, I want to come up and say hi. So I think that's the right way to go. I'm hearing a lot of like the work we can do in that first session to sort of build up your role, even if we're not giving it to you, but maybe more kind of offering some of the options, right? So that if you are bringing your family, sort of describe what we expect that to look like, as opposed to, if you're not, like, what that could look like. And it's interesting to me that you both feel that it was intruding on the families in that first visit, that you felt like a third wheel. They're having fun, they're engaging the activity, you don't necessarily need to be there. And we kind of started off that way, right? Like, you're not teaching, you're not facilitating the lesson at all, we are. So I can see where the awkwardness would come from. Anything else about how you spent your time, Elizabeth? Do you have anything to add to that?
I wanted to just bring it back to one of the goals of the program, which is being able to kind of break the stigma of, oh, it's scary talking to my teacher about X, Y, Z. Like, you want to kind of make it comfortable for a teacher to be able to communicate, well, vice versa, for a parent to be able to communicate with a teacher, because it's a team. It's about it's about the teacher, it's about the parent and the student putting the work in to all work collaboratively and make that kid successful. So I feel like something needs to be implemented during those Lucium nights to be able to achieve that a little bit more. And it's not just about defining the role of the teacher in there, but maybe some sort of activity they can all do collaboratively to bring them together, and kind of just break those barriers and break that awkwardness. And like, the teacher, she's a human too. She has her kids. Maybe she doesn't have kids, but she's human too, and she's here to support me and my journey that I have with my child. I guess that's really what I was trying to hone in at with the whole we need roles and we need more guidance in that sense.
Yeah. That was one of the struggles, to be honest with you. So some of the things we gained, we also lost some things. And one of the things we gained was getting out of that theater room a little sooner. And so in the past, we typically had activities in that room together, and they kind of forced those conversations that you're talking about, Elizabeth, because we would seat people so that the teachers were not seated together and were with students. So it wasn't that they were talking to everyone, but they were sort of embedded at a table and were part of an activity with like one or two families also sitting at the table. We couldn't do that. It was COVID that forced us to do those kind of scavenger hunt style to get everyone out of the room, which we like too, because the other thing that we saw over the years, the activities have always gone well, but there is this kind of point where the kids are like, but when do we get to see the museum, right? And they want to go out and see it. So we're feeling good about making the activity something that happens out in the galleries and exhibits. But I like what you're asking, and I'm wondering if there might be a way. I'm thinking about the scavenger hunts right now and trying to be a little bit creative. I'm wondering if maybe we're giving a particular clue or bit of information to each teacher so that the families have to go up to one of the teachers and ask for at least that. And then there's going to be some bit of interaction or conversation. We're going to come back to that inquiry bit in just a second and a little bit more on the scavenger hunts. Anything else that any of you would like to add about how time was spent, or again, recommendations for how to spend time in the future of the program? Perfect. So we'll move on to the next section there. The inquiry activity, I shared with you a spreadsheet, and I'll show you the copy of it right here, that has responses from your students. And we always really enjoy going back over the responses for the whole range, to be honest with you. Kind of seeing those that are struggling, but really trying to be thoughtful and get something on the page, compared to those that seem to really be digging in and excelling. And all of them, I think, are very telling. Just want to take a moment for you to look through and tell me, what do you notice? Does anything kind of stand out to you, positive or negative, things you see that are what you want to see kids and families kind of thinking about and pushing themselves to think critically? Or are there things that you see that maybe bother you a bit that you would like to have seen differently? And just curious, as everybody should have a copy that was attached to the Outlook invitation. I've got mine showing here, but you can pull up yours if you want to look through in more detail. I'll tell you, one of the things that impressed us with your school was the level of completion in the workbooks. As you can see, it's across the board for most of these. And, so as much as we're like kind of evening the playing field, the other thing is that the families and caregivers know, like, well, the museum's not teachers though, right? Like, we don't have to do this. And, we just hope that the activity itself, the engagement is there and they really want to finish it and do it all. Particularly if it's a scavenger hunt. When we're in the room, you kind of have the peer pressure, like everybody's working on the activity. So, we all have to do it. If not because we're getting a grade, just because like that's what everyone's doing. But once you let everyone out into the museum, then, you're not being watched. You just kind of wander and you don't have to fill it all out. But your kids and families filled out most of the books. There was quite a bit that was complete. So I love that. I'm going to give us a little bit of a pat on the shoulder that we made something that was interesting, but I think that also speaks to the climate at your school and however it was that the two of you framed this visit, that they were ready to come in and actively learn. I understand that they were ready to come to the museum and have fun. We saw that too, but I guess I'll put it this way. You communicated this in a way that they were ready to do it, attacked it, and there was no pushback, right? I've always braced myself when I make those introductions to say like, okay, are we ready to start the activity, and just get a groan, from the kids of like, oh, we just want to go out and play. And yeah, your group did awesome.
I think the wildlife and landscape exploration being the first thing that they did, right off the bat, was perfect. Just because we actually were talking about those two things, and as the kids were filling out their charts, they were excited because it was like, hey, we learned this today, or we learned this yesterday, and they were able to relate it. I think that got them like really going, and then they were excited to do the last three because they're like, okay, what's next? Let's get this done because I know this stuff. So I think it gave them that confidence, like, wow, this isn't going to be a hard thing to do. This is something I can do. I'm going to investigate and do all this stuff. And so I think, being able for them to be able to relate it to what we were already talking about in class gave them that confidence, which was awesome.
That's great. And that very serendipitous, but that actually goes to the second question. I was going to ask you, what more can we do to connect to what's happening in the classroom? So I can't be thankful enough to Ellen. She was a service learning student. I probably referred to her over and over again as an intern. She wasn't. There's a difference, if you're aware, right, when you take an internship, kind of the level of responsibility that's accepted versus a service learning project. She attacked this like an intern, and I really needed it. We unfortunately lost staff last year, so it was super helpful. We do training with all of our staff, volunteers, service learning interns, and she learned about our desire to do more inquiry. So she got excited about the potential for this, pitched it to me, and I was game. Like, let's try it, because it's a year to try new things, and we've got the time to have the teachers ask them questions, and then we can develop activities. So happy to hear that connection with the wildlife was there. I'm going to plant this question. If you have an answer, great. We'll come back around to it, as I'm interested in anything else that you might see in the responses. But what if we started at the beginning of the year? How can you imagine that an inquiry-based activity like this might be even more connected to what you're doing in the classroom? And how can a program like this at the museum maybe serve some of the things that they need to learn?
At the beginning of the year, they're they're doing a lot of, because if you're talking September, October, it's developing just good, like ready to learn skills. So like developing those good, like good citizenship, good readers, good writers, good mathematicians. So like, what are we doing? So that's something to think about, like how to really connect it to where how they're having to really go in and solve a problem, but using these good habits that they've developed. So maybe really pushing like that. Inquiry is like problem solving, but but really pushing that. I have to think about that more to connect it.
Yeah, please do. And again, I really hope that we get to continue to working together next year. So I'm really planting this not only for like the later in the session, but like when we reconnect coming into next school year. Although you did say some things. So I'm gonna wonder this aloud. I'm not asking for an answer. If you've got a thought, please share it. We continue to push ourselves here to figure out what is it exactly the value that we are bringing out into the community, particularly with our school partners. That's my team's job. We know it's there because we started off this session. Here's how I know it's there. We started off the session and there was no awkward silence, and either one of you or Elizabeth just waiting to say like, we really don't think that this was that valuable of a program, or we didn't like this or that about the visits, right? The first things y'all had to say, and I'm thankful, is they loved it. The kids loved it. You heard them talking about it. They made connections. Great. These are all things we know are working, but what is it exactly that is happening? So we're really looking at next year to try to get more into doing some research into our programs. And this is one that's on deck for possibly having some university partners join us and do a little bit of research. When it comes to those ready to learn skills at the beginning of the year, what I want to wonder aloud is, does that include, so problem solving is a part of it. I wonder, can we say inquiry or asking questions is a skill? So I would say as a teacher, I feel it is. If I'm in a classroom, right, I want you to feel comfortable asking me a question. And that can be anything from permission to go to the bathroom to something related to whatever I'm teaching, but we need to have that rapport. And curiosity is something I want to see in my students. The inquiry model that we use is meant to be able to channel students to learn how to ask questions that they could then test and find scientifically, right? So you start that by allowing, like, let's ask all the questions. But then as you build the skill of asking questions, you start to really realize that there's some questions that might take a lot more effort and maybe things we don't have at the museum or at our school to answer. And I'll understand that. So I can still ask the question, but I know I may not get an answer. And then I'll also learn to recognize the ones that probably my teacher can answer it right away, or I can go do this game at the museum or whatever, and I'll get an answer. And that's another skill. So I just want to offer, like, maybe that's one of those early school year skills, is kind of learning how to do that. And maybe we're embedding this activity early in the year to kind of drive those questions, and throughout the year kind of keep circling back around to them, not only in the museum visits, but I want to wonder, is there ways that we can kind of bring that back around to the classroom? So I'm going to plant that. We'll come back to it. If you've got thoughts, please share them. And yeah, anything else on that, on the inquiry, on the asking questions, and how that particular activity went? Okay, great. Next, there is an article that I shared with you, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on screen. It looks like this. I actually sent two. Both, I think, are really good resources for school partnerships. So we're along for the ride. Thank you, Elizabeth, for helping us find Pecan Valley. Thank you, Megan and Diana, for jumping on board for this opportunity. We want to keep the connection strong. What another outcome is that we hope from this program is not only kind of the reflection on your approach to communicating with parents and maybe refining that or finding some new ideas, but also your way of working with other partners in the community. And so that's us in this case, and we're really kind of driving it, especially in year one. But I will say, the longer we work with you, like some of the other schools that have gone into that third year, particularly, maybe in the second, definitely by the third, they start to pitch ideas back to us based on the school need and how we might change either the visits of the night or other things that are happening throughout the school year. So we're really interested in how we can continue to serve. I'm going to ask you to look at the article real quickly, just kind of scan through. And I want you to give particular attention to, on here, page 2, these are in this article, these 4 dimensions or outcomes are represented by an actual case study of a community partnership. And so there's one focused on that adult education, one in out of school time experiences, one on governance, and one on just linking the resources to schools. Take about no more than 5 minutes, and I want you to pick one of those. Just kind of scan through the article. You'll find where the sections are as they're labeled, right? So there's the adult development, and then it's got the field study. There's a shared out of school time. Just pick one of them and kind of dig into that section a little bit, see what you find, and then we'll just talk a little bit about what we find in this article and partnerships. Let me know if you have any questions. Take about 1 more minute. Okay. So we'll just kind of go around, Robin, and just if you'll give us a quick summary of the section that you were reading, and then I've got some questions aimed more directly at Pecan Valley and Elizabeth for you, I think kind of generally with the schools that you work with. I'll kick us off. I'm just going back to this article is focuses on evaluation measures as well towards the, let's see, this is on page 7, 6 and 7. It starts to go into like some of the performance measures. And yeah, some of these things are exactly the things that we look at. So number of families attending. We do ask a question on the parent survey about the positive interactions that they have with you during the visits. So it seems we're kind of aligned with what a standard is for an out of school time program for some of our measures. I think we're also continuing to research that and figure out what, as I was saying before, what more we can do to understand our impact better. And I'm just going to go around the screen here. So Megan, I'll go over to you. What were you reading about, if you can summarize for us?
I read the section about shared out of school time experiences. And it talked about, the programs outside of school and their purpose to help with communication, but also help share experiences with the families and the students. And it gave like some examples of what an OST program offers. And one thing that stood out to me was inviting parents to offer their voices, like sharing stories or thoughts about, I'm assuming the program, and which I thought was super cool. Giving parents that opportunity, to feel comfortable enough to come to the teacher like, hey, we enjoyed this, or next time, could we do this? Again, just building on that communication.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Diana.
Yes, I read the family one, like the adult development, because I think especially just for our area, that is a huge need. It's just teaching those parenting skills. So I like how they have that program where parents get together, and gosh, I mean, that's just would make such a big difference. I think a lot of our parents just don't know what they don't know, and they're doing the best that they can, and they really do need, like, just, it's not a slight, it's just what we need. They need those parenting classes.
Yeah, no, I like the way you said that, and I'm gonna say, as a parent, and I don't know if you commiserate, but I also know what I don't know what I don't know. I like the way you said it.
Exactly.
Because like I know what I do know. I know my training as a teacher. I know from working in places like the museum. So it's like I'm not, when I went into being a dad, which by the way I did at a very old age. I talk about going backwards from having a career working with kids into being a dad, and then like none of it applied. But so none of it applied, right? So it's like I knew the things I had done to redirect a child in a classroom, and first time I tried that with my stepdaughter, it's like, yeah, I'm dad. This is not the same. So it just hit me like there's a lot of things I don't know, and I think that's a really common experience. So great. Both of you bringing the focus back to the parent. I love that idea of giving them that voice and then maybe meeting some of their needs as well. Elizabeth.
I was looking at the welcoming all families portion of the article, and just talking about how, every school are very diverse. We have students from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, financial backgrounds. so just thinking about how we can bring those families together, how you can connect them with the schools themselves. And I thought I liked the idea that they had, or that one of the schools organized. It was like a morning activity where parents could meet with their teachers, administrators, other parents to just kind of discuss activities, get their feedback. And again, it connects to giving parents a voice, but also just making parents comfortable to approach, teachers / administrators. I think that's very important. In my experience, I work more with the high school, to be honest, East Central High School, and with my university, Tamusa. And I can definitely say that our principal, McKay, he does great effort to connect with families. He's pretty much at any event that we host on campus. And East Central in general is just great about communicating with their families, all the Facebook lives that they do to inform the community about changes in the schools or updates. They take that extra time of their day to go in front of their families and answer those questions. And I think that's very important.
Absolutely. I do feel like these things are tied together, because I think then, if you provide that opportunity for parents to have more of a voice, both in programs like these or the school, then I think by implication, you're going to maybe make some of those cultural connections, because they're going to speak from their frame of reference and their needs, you would hope. But I think if you're thoughtful about all of that and build those opportunities for them to be involved in, maybe not the governance, although there is a whole section in the article about involving parents in governance, but at least in deciding some of the kind of programmatic things that happen with their kids, or maybe just learning more about their needs. To that end, last questions in this section. What type of family involvement programs do you think would best serve your school? What are some of the challenges to this on your campus? And what do you think that the school could do to further engage and maybe involve partners to support that? So like the museum, it doesn't have to be us. What are your thoughts immediately? And I know, we're doing this for Firepower, so I'm planting these seeds for us to think about. Hopefully you continue to think about it, even if we do not get to do the program. I hope we do. And when we do, we'll come back around to these. But what are some thoughts about the needs on your campus for these kinds of programs?
I've only been with Pecan Valley and with East Central for a year, so it's a little hard to speak specifically to their needs, and especially since this is a year of COVID, so I don't. I've talked to our admin of things that they used to do as far as with family engagement and all of that culturally responsive teaching. But I do think we need a lot more just fun family nights, because I think we need to bring that back in a bit. And I know that it's hard because there's such a push for the academics, and especially because Pecan Valley was struggling a couple of years back. And so that things have really changed, like the climate and the culture. Mm-hmm. But in order to really just get kids excited about learning, we need to have that fun stuff where they're learning through play, where it's still structured. And I forgot, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, something like that.
I keep hearing that a lot in conversations this school year. We've heard it before, but more kind of peppered, right? Every now and then we'll kind of engage with the teacher, principal, whoever, that's like, we really need more of the joy, and they're coming to us because it's and we see the museum does that. That's right. That's what we're here for. But this year it feels like almost every conversation that I'm having with schools is we need the joy, man. And I'm feeling it too. And it's in our mission statement. Joyful learning is the way that we describe what we do in our mission statement. And this, it's been the most joyless year. And I mean, just because we've all gone through this. It hasn't in a lot of ways, because I think we've all kind of been in this together and pushed ourselves to make some things joyful, right? Like the drive-by birthday parties and just figuring out how to carry on with life. But as I've looked back on it, I've felt it really sapped a lot of the potential joy Was talking with a colleague this morning about how our little third graders missed so many of the regular things that as a dad you want them to be able to do, and it's just kind of a sad year. So digging back into the fun and the joy, I think as we come out of this, is going to be a high need. Um, anything else? Any other needs that? Yeah.
Just to piggyback on what Diana said, so it's only my second year at Pecan Valley, and last year we did family engagement nights. We called them academic nights or whatever. The families could come, but we never really had big turnouts for those. And honestly, this article and having the experience with the museum, just having more fun family nights away from the school setting. Honestly, comparing, I mean, last year's turnout to those academic nights to my turnout at the museum, I had more families attend the museum than I did come to school for our academic stuff. I think changing the setting is something it makes more fun and more, it's different. It's outside of the school setting. And the kids don't really get to see us outside of the school setting too. So that's super exciting for them as well. And it helps us, I felt honestly closer to the parents. Like I actually got to have real life person to person conversations, which was something not used to as a teacher. You know, it's always, oh, let's talk about your kid, but it was like a kind of a get to know you on a personal basis, which was different and nice.
That's great. And that's another hope for outcome. So I'm glad to hear you say it. Just having that just natural interaction without having the hat on of we have to talk to each other because this is an official whatever. So that's great. Yeah, I hope there's part 2 for us for next year. So over the next week, I'll reach out to your principal and circle you guys in the conversation and just get a good handshake confirmation that we're on for next year. And then we'll come back around as the school year starts. Likely I'll start reaching out again in July, August, and then we'll start finding those dates. So I'm saying immediately for the next year, you know, our intent is to continue this. You've got a location. What I would ask for you to think about and maybe have these conversations with your colleagues is what could those nights mean for Pecan Valley? So if you're not seeing the kind of attendance hoped for at school events, maybe there's something that we can provide an evening for you with the restrictions changing and evolving. We are expecting to be able to have more people. The highest attended of the strengthening school and family relationship programs we've had is about 480. It was almost 500 people. And we're working with 2 grade levels. And once we'd worked with them for a bit, they expressed this need to kind of the same thing that you're saying, not exactly, but they wanted could we do something that was across the grade levels and invite everyone? And we had the rapport and we've been working with them. So we were able to do it. And it went well. And incidentally, it actually gave us the run of show for the way that we were working with you guys, because we couldn't have all of those people have dinner at one time. So we had to figure out how do we rotate that? But we can, when we're not in a pandemic response, fit a lot of people here. And we want it to be full and used in ways that support the community. So no need to answer tonight, but if you think about what a family night at the museum might not take the place of, but maybe kind of extend at your school, please know we're interested in that. And maybe that's part of our part 2 for next year. Anything else to add to this? Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts? Maybe not specifically Pecan Valley, but how out of school time can serve the district?
You know, it's interesting because I think maybe we might all be feeling a little bit like this because it's the end of the year, but I honestly feel overwhelmed and just looking at all the stuff that needs to be done for the end of the year. So we were TSI testing today. We tested 80 kids, and then towards the end I remembered, oh wait, I have that PLC session today. I was like, great. But it worked out nicely into where it's been a nice conversation and so good to hear feedback from everyone. And I'm very happy that it positively affected, teachers and families. So that's to say that as much as we're overwhelmed, as much as it can be hard work or just take time out of our day, it's needed, so
Yeah.
just kind of there.
Yeah, no, thank you for, I'm going to say in my outdated slang, thank you for keeping it real, Elizabeth. I think that's exactly the right thing to say. This has been an extremely overwhelming year for everyone. The fact that we could keep this program alive, to be honest with you, we paused quite a lot of our outreach programs so that we not only kept it going, but to your point that we have these positive experiences together. I leave that with a lot of confidence because I feel like if we can pull this off in the middle of, pandemic restrictions and not knowing what was going to happen week to week, when things improve, I think we can only have a greater impact. We're coming close to the end of the hour. I know we've got it scheduled for the hour and a half, but I'm going to just real quickly kind of go over the last three components, and then in the chat, I will share a link to a Google form. If you don't get it right after this, please email me and I'll email it to you. But for this last 30 minutes, if you want to work on the survey, that would be great. So the last section here, just a second. There's other components that we typically do year to year. And because we are being adaptable, we're not expecting that you'll be able to do these, but we want to, again, plant those seeds and see what it might mean for next year. So that's a campus cooperative initiative. And what that means is that typically by the time we've gotten, we've done 4 visits in regular school years. And by the time we get to that second visit, we would have had 2 PLC sessions. That second visit, we've got a good rapport going. And we ask for teachers and the families that have been attending to come up with something that might happen at the campus. It doesn't have to be super complex. It can be a really simple project. It doesn't have to be an event. That is why it has such an ambiguous name. It's your initiative, it's your project. We don't want to say what it is, but what we're interested in is, are you able to work with those families, particularly the ones that you saw coming regularly? And Diana, I'll take your point that maybe is not the target audience, right? Because they're coming regularly and you really want to reach those families that are not as engaged. But you've got these allies in the families that are coming regularly. And we just wonder, how can that work together to do something that the museum is not driving, but that you guys are creating for your campus? So the seed is planted, no expectation of that happening this year. We're looking forward to a year 2 with you, and hopefully that's something that can come in the following school year. On the community partner engagement side, keep us appraised of other partners you would be interested in working with. Part of our role in the community is to serve as a hub for all things that are good for kids. So in all likelihood, if you name an organization, we've probably worked with them in the past. If we haven't, we're always interested in forming new relationships. And so we're thinking here about particular resources or programs that would benefit your families and your kids. And as I was saying with Aspire, Elizabeth, those partners could come in and be part of a family night, or we can help to connect them to your school and kind of serve as that liaison for you, and if that's helpful. Last thing is the exit survey. In it, I'm asking you to draft a statement of commitment to caregiver engagement. And so that's yours. That is a personal statement. But I'm interested in where you are at the end of this school year, having experienced this program. What are the commitments that you can confidently say you want for yourself as you continue in your career as a teacher in regards to those engagements with families and the relationship? Most of the first part of the survey is a Likert scale. and then you'll have some short and the one kind of long answer question, which is this one. As soon as you've submitted the forms, I see those, I will send your CPE credit certificates. It has been so awesome getting to know y'all and working with you this year. I really am excited that the potential is there to continue for next year. We've got the budget. We just need the okay from your administrators, and then we'll do it. Any last questions, thoughts, concerns? With that, I am going to put a link in the chat. And then if you want to try the link immediately, see if you can get onto the form, please do that and let me know if you have any problems. That link work out? We all able to see the form? Okay, perfect. With that, I am going to close the Zoom call. Take your time on the survey, and look forward to reconnecting with you. We'll do that before the end of the school year. So I'll reach out within the next couple of weeks, get that confirmation, and then we can all go off, have a great summer, and come back around and hopefully do some really good creative work together.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm actually drafting up an email just for you, Chris.
Awesome. Great. Reach out to me if you have any problems with the form, any other questions. Thank you all very much for making the time tonight and for sticking with us through the whole year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.